I want to change gears here just a second, because I think this is an important piece. We've been talking about what it means to be for and joining together. What inevitably is going to happen along the way is you and I are going to find something about one another that we're not quite sure we agree with. Mm-hmm. We're going to find something about one another's stories that we're like, I don't know about that. Mm-hmm. And I'm not sure I see the world that way. Mm-hmm. And I'm not sure that conviction is my conviction. Mm-hmm. And so when we start hearing these stories from others, when we start learning the stories of others, and we disagree or we are uncertain about those types of things, what would your advice be? What are your thoughts on allowing our perceptions to be challenged, and then being okay with those perceptions and worldviews being challenged, and still being able to find that camaraderie? But you know,
I love my wife. She loves me. We don't always agree.
Right.
I don't always agree with myself. So we will not always agree, but we can always be respectful. Mm-hmm. We can seek to understand than to be understood. And I think we're in a time where people don't want to understand the other viewpoint.
Yeah.
We are quick to say, no, that's not right. Mm-hmm. And this is a great opportunity for me to talk about this. So when Captain Sully landed the plane on the Hudson.
Yes, great story.
I saw an interview days after with the flight crew, some of the passengers, to talk about that experience. And the calm he showed and the way he handled it was heralded and everything. But the flight crew was back there with the passengers. And there were some of the flight attendants that were in the front of the plane. And they were asked, how was it? And they were like, actually, it was not really that bad. Like, it was so smooth, and it was, it was a little frightening, but then it was like, oh, we're there. And they kept kind of hanging on that for a little while too long. Mm-hmm. And the flight attendant that was in the rear of the plane said, I was in the back. It hit the back first. It was not that smooth for me. Mm-hmm. It was not that calm for me. We took the blow first, and then the plane landed.
Yeah.
They on the same plane.
Right.
They both landed safely. Mm-hmm. But someone's ride was a little more bumpy than the other. They are both true. Mm-hmm. I don't have a right, if I'm in the front of the plane, to negate your experience because mine wasn't your experience.
Yeah.
And you don't have a right, if you're in the back, to negate mine because and I think that's what we have to recognize, that there are some unique struggles that are inherently to certain groups. You and I, as able-bodied persons, don't have to struggle. We're those of us of a certain stature don't have to struggle to reach things. It's natural for us to grab it. My wife frequently calls me to reach things, right? I'm like, oh my gosh, I bought her a step stool and she still calls me to reach the things. I don't know what it's like to be that height because it's been a long time since I was there.
Yeah.
So this is normal for me.
Yeah.
But that's also normal for her, right? And so we have to be empathetic.
Yeah.
And I think what happens if we just seek to understand what's that like, right? It's as I saw you talk to Kevin about the incidents of being the only person in a room, right? That's a normal thing for me. Mm-hmm. My wife and I go out, and it's not infrequent for us to be the only blacks in the room. To the point, and I've lived in Lubbock a long time, and I'll tell you this, I may have told you this before, that I was in North Carolina for a wedding, and a friend who was stationed nearby came and we did lunch or picked me up for dinner, and we went to a restaurant, and there was a lot more black people in the room than I was accustomed to. Yeah. And I was literally like, say, man, are we good? And he was like, what are you talking about? And I realized I had just become acclimated to being the only one, that I was uncomfortable when I wasn't. And so imagine what that is to live like that on a regular daily basis. Right. It just become my norm.
Yeah. A mutual friend we have, Brandy Stewart over at Tech, I mean, she and I have had this conversation a couple of different times about one of the things when she teaches this stuff is she uses left-handed scissors on a regular basis because we live in a world where most things are created for right-handed people. That's just the way things are, right? And so, one of the things that she does as part of her teaching is she uses only left-handed scissors and says, "Welcome to it. This is what it's like for left-handed people in your world." And it's such a great interactive exercise that every one of us, I'm right-handed, start to mess with scissors that's not, I'm like, what is wrong with this thing?
Absolutely.
Like, my body does not work right.
Absolutely.
Like, I can't.
Yeah, it's something that you normally can do.
Yes.
But it's awkward. And here's the thing that happens. And this, there was this book a long time ago, Where Do All the Black Kids Sit Together in the Cafeteria? It's like, if you ever with a group of folks and you see something about left-hand people and there's more than one in the group, they end up inevitably they bond. There's this interesting, you know what it's like to be me.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think that's what happens. And so when we're like, well, how do they isolate themselves? It's not about isolation. Sometimes it's just about, I'm seen, I can be myself. I'm in my space. Like when I'm out of town and I'm traveling and I have on a double T or I have Texas Tech hat on and somebody goes, guns up. We know each other.
Yeah.
We have a shared experience. Right?
Yeah.
Literally, I'm in Italy and a guy walks by with a Texas Tech bag and I'm like, "Go Raiders!" And he's like, "Yeah!" Like we have this connection.
Yeah.
There is this inherent need to connect, and so we all have those individual things, like simple things like left-handed and short and tall and whatever. But we also have that human, like all pain hurts, all oppression hurts. Like if I say, "Man, I poked my hand in my eye." Instantly, if you've had that experience, you're like, oh, something happens, your eyes start to water because you know what that feels like. If I say headache, or if I say migraine, and you've ever had a migraine, you have that, we have some shared experiences. If I've never had a headache, I'm like, Like you and I as men have no idea what it's like to give birth. Like we were there, right? Right? We were there when it happened, and we were like, oh, thank God I'm a man.
Yeah.
But to have gone through that, there's a bond with that mother and other mothers. There's a bond with that mother and that child because that process was there. As we become 4 people, we start getting in there with them so that their hurt is our hurt.
Yeah.
Their struggle is our struggle.
Yeah, let's take this even a little bit further because I think one of the things that ends up hitting, whether it's workplaces, I think it hits any type of group, any type of group, is we have this conversation of assimilation versus integration because what you and I are talking about is very much integration and what it means to be for people's uniqueness and be united in that uniqueness. And I think that's one I want us to talk about because assimilation in a lot of ways is typically, generally, let me just give you kind of everybody just make sure we know what we're talking about, a basic, right? Where people are expected to adopt fully the culture, the practices of whatever they're entering into. And often what happens in that assimilation is their uniqueness and individuality gets lost.
Absolutely.
Whereas integration is one of those things, and again, just to make sure we're all on the same page, integration is one of those things where we can incorporate individuals into the group. And while they may do a lot of the things that the group is doing and be for a lot of the things that the group is for, they don't lose their inherent dignity, value, individuality, and uniqueness.
Right.
It becomes an addition, not something that we have to cover up.
Right. It's an addition, not a subtraction.
Absolutely, absolutely. Let's talk about the complications of this, the complexities of this, because when you hear integration and when you talk about whether it's you working with your church or whether it's you working with the different nonprofits that you work with or the students, why is it so important to highlight integration over assimilation? I think a lot of us can answer that question, but the intentionality of doing this exercise is worth it. When
my wife and I got married, and I'm going to answer your question. I'm setting it up. My mother is one of 6. My wife's mother, my mother-in-law is, I think I count up to 9. I think there's a little more, right? Both large families. My family is very, very connected. I grew up with my first cousins pretty much being like siblings. My wife had similar experience, but not with everybody, right? Birthdays are huge in my family. Like we have our own family birthday song.
I didn't know this.
Like, for real.
I didn't know
Like,
this.
you know how you go to the like Chick-fil-A, or like a restaurant, and they're like,
Yeah.
we have one for our family.
Okay.
Like, we will sing the regular happy birthday sing you, but if it's multiple of us that have the same birthday month and we haven't been together, when we get together, we're going to sing it all your verses for you. We're going to sing all of yours, and we're going to do it and then we end with the family birthday song.
That's very funny.
So my wife is more of a loner. So we get married, and she goes, we're dating, and she goes home with me for the first time, and it's like overload. She goes for Christmas. And we do this thing in my family called calling the tree. I don't know where it started, but this is tradition in our family where literally they put all the gifts under the tree, and then they call your name and they give you all of your gifts, and nobody opens anything. And then we start with the youngest and go all the way to the eldest. It helped us to learn birth order.
Yeah.
But you had to sit through all of your younger cousins and siblings opening their things. And I mean, you have to watch them open all of their stuff. And the younger they are, the more stuff they have. And then we started learning, like, you kind of get a peep of what you're going to get, because some of our family members give everybody the same thing. And so like,
I have those family members.
This is your sweater, right? Yours may be different color. And so this process takes hours. So my wife goes, and she's like, it's torture for her, right? And I'm like, yeah, this is just what we do.
Yeah.
I go home with her for Christmas one time, and they give me this stuff, and I'm sitting there waiting, and they're like, open your stuff. Like, they're all going in. I'm like, no, this is not what we do. I need to watch you open yours. And I'm like, Cory, open your stuff. So then when we got married and we had kids, we had to decide, what are we going to do? I like what we do in my family. She likes the way they do. So what's our way? I could be like, this is how we do it.
Yeah.
Right? That would be assimilation. Integration is how do we do it here together.
Yeah. And
so basically what we decided to do was we still rotate. We rotate, like you open one, then the other person opens one. We don't have to wait through this whole period of time. It's a little bit of mine, a little bit of hers. To answer your question in long form, integration really is about us bringing our true selves, all of ourselves, and saying, how does this work here? There are certainly points where assimilation has to happen. This is the mission statement. This is how we dress. This is how we function. These are the rules. These are the policies. This is how we operate. But then there are other things that I still get to bring my culture to this. And it's wrong for you to say that mine doesn't matter and I have to do it your way.
Right.
Because if I don't celebrate Christmas, I shouldn't be forced to celebrate it.
Yeah.
Right? And you shouldn't be forced. Like, how do we coexist? How do we celebrate our own uniqueness? How do we join and bring this integrated perspective to because I get to be me.
Yeah.
So if you give me a speech, I'm going to read through it, and I'm gonna change some words because I don't talk like that.
Yeah.
I'm going to interject some Cory Powell in this.
Yeah.
Because in order for it to be authentic, it has to be me. So when I was a chairman of the Chamber of Commerce, there was lots of speeches and lots of things, and there were those moments where I knew, okay, I have to say this verbatim.
Yeah.
And there were those times where I could put a little Cory Powell in there. I'm still going to be me no matter where I am, or I'm not the person for this job.
Yeah.
Because I got to bring my authentic self to the situation. And I think that is, we have to give people permission. But if I know I'm valued, then I know I can bring that idea to you.
If you and I are relating to one another based upon where we started in this conversation, that I'm for you and you're for me, you're not a threat to me, and it doesn't hurt me to honor your voice and your uniqueness.
Yes.
In fact, it only benefits me because I become better, we become better, society becomes better.
Absolutely. And we don't have to agree.
Yes.
We can just say, you know what? All right. But I heard you. Right? You heard me.
Yeah.
But to be able to have a conversation, like I think that's one of the things that's lost now. People don't want to talk.
Yeah.
Right? We just jump from it, right? So hear me out. Let me hear you out. And we can go and make a decision. Maybe there's somewhere in the middle we can meet. And if we can't, we can disagree. We don't talk about that. Like I have relatives, I don't talk about politics too. I just refuse to have those conversations. For the love that we have, we're gonna move on beyond this. And I think that's okay. But there are some things that we cannot debate. There's just like this is yes or no. This is right or wrong. Like being able to have that space to be truthful and to learn, ever learning. I think that's the process we have to always be working towards the better good, whether that's as a company or as individuals or as a community. Where can we go now? What's our vision forward? because we are going to be held accountable by those who will follow us. And if you think about all of the things that have happened in our country, courage was always necessary. And sometimes it's courage to admit that we didn't do this right.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's courage to admit we need to make a change. Women should be able to vote. They're independent thinkers and they can work, they can own, we should be able to have those conversations and evolve for the better, because you and I, as parents of daughters, don't want our daughters limited because some guy said they can't.
Right.
We don't want our sons limited because somebody said they can't. We don't want to be limited because somebody. So let's just everybody have those opportunities. Let's get out of everyone's way.
Yeah.
And let them do their best and support them and move them forward. Because as you said earlier, your winning does not mean I can't. We can win. If I'm losing, we are losing. If you mute my voice, you miss some melody.
Yeah. Yeah. And nothing good comes from winning at the expense of others.
Correct.
It's destructive for the person who's oppressed, and whether we know it or not, it's destructive for the person who wins.
Absolutely.
So let's as we kind of wrap this up. Sure. I did the same thing with Kevin. It's a big deal for me, even when we go back to our previous podcast seasons when we've done emotional intelligence and other stuff. I love to hear the stories of people because I think stories change us in ways that, in some cases, I think stories change us in ways that facts can't, because there's something that connects with our hearts. As a black man in Lubbock, Texas, as a man raised married to a black woman and who has two black kids, you have experiences and perceptions and worldviews that I don't, just because I'm white.
Sure.
I didn't grow up in Lubbock. You have way more history here than I do. I have a white wife and I have two white kids.
Wait, you're white?
Yeah. When you think about how a lack of diversity, equity, and inclusion has impacted your family or yourself personally, tell me about that. Like what have you experienced? Have you walked through it to become healthier? Because I know this about you. You would not be doing what you're doing now if you had not found some healing and a place to do something about really something bigger than yourself. So you've clearly figured some things out, worked through some stuff, but what has that experience been like?
That's a hard question, and I really, for me, I try not to walk through with the lens of black, white.
Okay.
I literally try not to walk through that.
Talk me through this.
I've been black my whole life. That's all I know. So a lot of the things they're not, like, I've had people point things out to me, like, hey, that was kind of racist. Did you not feel? And I was like, it's just, I'm accustomed to certain things. I lived in Lubbock since 1988, with the exception of a year. Raised my family here, met my wife here. Lubbock's been good to me. I've had some wonderful opportunities. Are there things that I dislike about it? Are there some racist things that happen? Absolutely. Some things that I don't wish my children to ever be exposed to? Yes. My son we've always lived in predominantly white neighborhoods. My son has gone to predominantly white schools. He was in elementary school, and he came home one day, and he said, "Dad, are we white people or are we black people?" And I was proud because I hadn't made him feel different. But then I was sad because that should not be a question you ever have, son.
Yeah.
I said, "Let there be no doubt. You're a black man. You're black." And he goes, someone in school told him there was a difference between them. You're black. That hurt me as a father. I have to work through that emotional part right here because I didn't want my kid to feel that way.
Yeah.
Because I grew up feeling that way. So my son is at an age where he was being introduced to racism. And the first election that President Obama won, they had a mock election at their school. And he came home and talked about it the day before. And I said, "Oh, who you're voting for and why?" And he was able to articulate to me what he had read and what he had been taught and what he'd been told. And he decided who he was going to vote for. And when he came home, he told me that Obama didn't win their mock election. And I asked him, why do you think that is? And he said, I don't think they think a black man can do it. That hit me a little ways. Mm-hmm. It took me back to my childhood when they had the president's poster on the wall. And you were like, old white man, older white man's son. Like you see the names and you're like, you don't see any face that looks like yours. That was November. That previous month I had been in DC and I brought my son and my daughter shirts that said future president of the United States. It's a souvenir. We had the conversation the day of the election. He goes to bed. I'm watching the television with my wife when it's announced that Barack Obama was the next president of the United States. And I want to wake my son up. I want to wake him up so badly. My wife was like, no, he has school in the morning. I was like, I need him to know it's possible.
Yeah.
Because a part of me didn't think it was. Mm-hmm. And I didn't want him to live that. His story got to be different, right? So the next morning, as soon as he woke up, I said, guess what? I went in there proud. And I have the picture in my phone where my daughter and my son both wore those shirts that day. My daughter to daycare, my son to school. To have lived that experience, politics aside, huge.
Yeah.
Because it changed the faces. It changed it for little boys. It changed it for future generations. For me personally, the struggle of knowing I'm often the first or the only is just the weight that I carry. And it's one that I carry proudly, recognizing I owe it to people like my grandmother, to my great-grandparents, and to folks who couldn't even fathom the things that I've been blessed to do in my life. Mm-hmm. But I also owe it to people like my son and those after him, to my daughter and those after them, so that they don't have to experience what I did, what my mother did, what my grandmother did, so that they feel valued and seen and heard, not because of the color of their skin, but because of who they are and their contributions and the impact they can make, to empower them to use their skills and their talents to make this world better, to make a contribution, so that those after us are glad we lived here.
Yeah.
That's the work I focus on.
Mm-hmm. Man, I thank you so much for doing this, being a part of this conversation. I think that's been one of the fun things about my journey over the last several years is getting to learn from you and hear your take on things, and then like what we've been talking about. Like, I know you're for me, and you know I'm for you.
Absolutely.
So,
and let me say thank you for this platform, and thank you for you and Madeira, for Dave, both the Daves, like for your vision to say we can do this better. Not to say that things were broken, but are we at our best, right? Are we working at that's what champions do, is they improve. It's fine tune it. You're always growing, always learning, always changing, always evolving.
Madeira Companies, I hope you've enjoyed this as much as we have. We will have another episode for you. We're going to continue this journey, continue learning, get to hear from some more great people. Y'all have a good one.